Marie Zambaco was born in London in 1843 to Greek parents, members of the cultured Greek community. Her uncle, Alexander Ioannidis, was a wealthy and respected patron of the arts. Marie Zambaco was well educated and artistic. At the age of 15, she lost her father and inherited a large fortune. In 1861, she married the Greek doctor Dimitrios Zambaco and moved to Paris. Their marriage produced 2 children, but she soon divorced and moved back to London to follow an artistic career. Through her friend and fellow artist, Marie Spartali, she was introduced to the painters of the Pre-raphaelite circle. She started posing for them as a model and taking art lessons. Here we can see a fashionable portrait of Marie Zambaco by Gabriele Rossetti, who was one of the founders of the Pre-raphaelite movement. In order to help her daughter, Marie Zambaco's mother commissioned a portrait of her daughter from Edward Burne-Jones, an established painter of the Pre-raphaelite circle. Soon, Marie Zambaco became Edward Burne-Jones' muse and lover. She posed as a model for many of his famous artworks. In his painting, The Song of Love, she is represented as the lady playing the musical organ and as the figure of love. Edward Burne-Jones was married and a well-known artist. Their affair was inappropriate and scandalous for the strict Victorian society. It lasted several years but ended when Marie Zambaco attempted suicide, when she realized that he would not leave his wife to marry her. She soon left for Paris, only to return again to London to study sculpture under the artist Alphonse Legros. She mostly produced small bronze sculptures and medals, an applied art form which was fashionable during the late Victorian era. Her bronze medals were exhibited in London and Paris. In 1906 she moved to Greece and then back to Paris, where she died in 1914. A sketch by the painter Samuel Keane portrays Marie Zambaco drawing at her easel. Her bronze medals are now part of the British Museum collection and can be viewed there.
The artists belonging to the Pre-Raphaelite circle employed several models for their paintings, mostly working-class women trying to survive in the harsh Victorian times. Being an artist's model was deemed immoral according to the strict moral codes women had to follow in the Victorian society. Marie Zambaco and Marie Spartali, in contrast, were independent women, seeking personal and artistic fulfillment. They were open-minded and defied moral codes. Marie Spartali was born in Middlesex in 1843. Her father was a wealthy merchant and a Greek consul in London. She studied painting under the guidance of painter Ford Max Brown for 5 years and was well acquainted with Marie Zambaco and the rest of the Pre-Raphaelite artists. She was also a model for Brown, Julia Cameron and Gabriele Rossetti. Here we can see a painting by Gabriele Rossetti titled The Bower Meadow, where Marie Spartali is the model for one of the female figures. She also features in several of his studies and artworks. Her sister Christine Spartali posed for the famous painting The Princess from the Land of Porcelain by James McNeill Whistler. During the time she posed as a model, she created her own artworks, mainly influenced by the ideas and aesthetic of the Pre-Raphaelite movement. In 1871, she married the American reporter William Stillman and moved to Rome and Florence. Together they had 3 children. Her stay in Italy had an impact on her work. She introduced aspects of the Italian Renaissance art in her paintings and made use of the Italian nature and landscape. Her marriage imposed a heavy workload on her. as her husband was a widower with 3 children from his former marriage. Marie Spartali complained there was no time to paint, but during her long career she produced over 100 paintings and exhibited in London and abroad. She died in 1927 in Britain. Nearly all her paintings belong to private collections. A few of her artworks can be viewed at the Watts Gallery in the UK and at the Delaware Art Museum in the USA.